let's get started.
Mike didn't give you anything.
You just have to wait on
I'm
it.
Michael Bowles. I'm
Because I didn't
Executive
know it.
Director of the Association for the Wolf Lake Initiative. Ollie for short. And we co-sponsor, this is the 4th year that we co-sponsored the forums. And every April, our forum is part of Humanities Week at Calumet College. So those who have been attending those events, welcome. And I have laid out some leaflets at the sign-in table. If you haven't taken a look at it, you can go back later. And so we have some announcements, and Jennifer Young, who has been coordinating Humanities Week. Is that the correct way?
I'm trying, yeah.
Trying to coordinate, and has a few messages.
So our version of a freshman experience coordinator on campus and our captain for our American Heart Association Heart Walk team. Tonight, after your amazing presentation, we are doing trivia to raise money for the American Heart Association. All of the questions come from Friends or Seinfeld. I know some of you have seen many a rerun, right? Tickets are $10. All the money raised goes to the American Heart Association, except for the prize, which we take from the pool. We're right down the hallway. So you'll pass the study buddy, which is our version of the cafeteria, and then you'll turn to the right. You'll see students and balloons. And, we are serving refreshments. I also left the flyer as a reminder. It's back on the snack table. And then trivia night's on there. And then we have lots of cool stuff going on the rest of the week. I also strongly encourage you to come to the variety show. Friday night, it's all students and faculty singing and acting and doing dramatic readings of Bible passages. So it promises to be a good time. And the variety show is for free. So please come and support them. We'll also be doing a bake sale at the variety show, which will also raise money for the American Heart Association. Okay, thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Jennifer. Anybody else with announcements? Yeah.
In case you missed the Shifting Sands presentation that was in this room a couple of months ago,
February.
it'll be reshown at Westminster Presbyterian Church in Munster on Earth Day at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And admission is free, but I would like to know if anybody is coming, just sort of tell me how many so that we can plan for seating and refreshments. 3 o'clock, Earth Day.
Since we have a competing film,
Well,
shown
well, you know which one to go to.
It's the Jens Jensen, The Living Green film that is being shown. Had I known. So this could be shown at Pullman National Monument at 3 o'clock on Sunday, Earth Day.
Earth Day.
And then on Saturday at 3 o'clock, the city of Chicago and the park are also hosting a film called Happening. It's about renewable energy in the United States, and James Redford directed this one. So 2 free films for National Park Week. But Shifting Sands is all about national parks and environmental, so tough choices, lots of good movies.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else? Okay. Tonight's speaker is John Trafny, and he's got a kind of a varied background. He started out at U.S. Steel. What department?
Blast furnace department.
Blast furnace. Okay. For 12 years, right? And then he, well, first of all, he's a graduate of Calumet College. He's got his undergraduate degree in social sciences. And then got a master in history from Purdue University in 1999. And he's the author of 5 books on Gary. And they're by community, the Polish community of Gary. Okay, you tell them about that.
Sure,
You're very familiar with them. So, I would hope so. He's taught for how many years? 32 years at Bishop Knoll. And he's taught here for quite a few years as adjunct faculty. member, and he's currently teaches at Purdue Northwest. So, and John Trafny can explain his books to you better than I can, and he has some here if you wish to purchase them. All of our speakers, and even those that are sitting in the audience that want to sell their books, can just hold up their book and wave them around. And because we want writers we want them to sell their books because we want to encourage them to keep writing. So that's so. John Trafny.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I should point out that I am from the region. I guess you can call me a region rat. I'm proud of it. I was born in Cary, Indiana. I went to Catholic school. St. Hedwig was a little Polish church that sadly closed last year. The parish did after 109 years. I went to Emerson School in Gary. First work, study, play, high school in the country. I worked at U.S. Steel, last furnace department. I was member in 1014 when I worked there. Spent some years in the military, all expense paid vacation to Germany. Yeah, that was, risk is like that. Also, went back to school. I'm in GI Bill. I was here when it was St. Joseph's College. And I started at the old Chicago campus, and then when it moved here in the 70s, did my master's at Purdue. I taught at Knoll for 32 years. Taught here as an adjunct, and I'm semi-retired, let's put it that way. I'm retired from Knoll, but I still teach part-time at Purdue, do a couple classes. I have done some research on this particular area, thanks to some incentive or push from the late Dr. Eddie Civic and Dr. Lance Trusty. I got involved in some of the writing of some books on local history published by Arcadia Publishing. And back in 2000, actually 1999, I stayed in class with late Dr. Trusty. We did a couple graduate papers, and he kind of encouraged me to maybe try to get it published. Which I did, and I kind of fell on Arcadia. I've done 4 books. The first one was the Polish community, the second one was about theories inside. Did 2 others, I'm really not going to talk about those 2 at the time. I did one on the west side of Gary, or Stan neighborhood. I did one on the Glen Park neighborhood that's near IU Northwest, if you're not familiar. I'm working on a 5th one, but it's just working on it. That's all. And each of these books pretty much will look at one neighborhood, look at the people, neighborhood itself, some of the business there, labor, the churches, the schools, anything else I can throw in. This one here was a chronological history of the Polish neighborhood and the parish in Gary. We began in 1908, just like the city did. The others, again, in different areas. All 4 books still have tied together in similar ways. Looking at the people themselves, the families, their churches. Most of them are different ethnic groups that I looked at. Even centered their lives around their church. Their schools, because that was always like an anchor in the community. And all 4, I do mention things about where they worked. All of them were tied to Big Steel, U.S. Steel in the area. Of course, others worked in different industries and that, but still there was a tie into steel, United States Steel. What I was going to present to you is a little bit of the full history of Gary, and go back and forth between these 2 books. And when we get to the part about the 1919 steel strike, we'll focus a little bit on that. And go back a little more about the neighborhood, my family. And if we get to the 37 strike, for some of you across the state line in Chicago, is it east side or southeast side?
East side for them.
Gary's east side, but that area where Republic Steel stood, I'm going to bring up a few things about that and show you a short video that was taken from the series The Great Depression of PBS. If I get something wrong, if you raise your hand and say, no, it was this year or whatever, I don't get offended. So I guess what I should do first is tell you a little bit about these. I pretty much all those pictures are images. Okay, that is the cover of the first book I did, Gary's Polish Community. And again, you're looking at one of the reading classes. That was the building that was in church and school. You can kind of see that actual building later on. Arcadia said, yeah, that's a nice picture, let's go with it. So that was covered. You notice I have an introduction by Dr. Trafny. He was very, very helpful as far as we put this book together, and I asked him to do the introduction. I'm indebted to the guy. Well, they sadly passed away not too long ago. The second book is Gary's East Side, and it was about the neighborhood I grew up in. And if you look at close to the picture, this says Broadway, Christmas time. This is from right around 6th Avenue. I kind of wanted that because we had little glass in the hotel and that. Somebody was able to get this done pretty good for a night shot from late 1950s, I'm sorry, early 60s. So the first book, there's a few things I want to talk to you about. That's where these lights people come from. In this particular case, this was a Polish community that started on the south of the Wabash Tracks in Gary. The Wabash Tracks were kind of the dividing line. You want to say rich and poor, or ethnics, later on Hispanic, African Americans, you know. And on the north side, you had your horseman district. Those were the it's more kind of exclusive area around there. The hoi polloi of Gary would live there. To the east, the Emerson district, when we get to it, more skilled craftsmen than that, but still there was that dividing line, which was the Wabash Tracks for many, many years. The church here was on 17th and Connecticut, sand dunes and that. This was the first church to be built, old wooden church, which later was, I found out, not exactly torn down, because part of it, they put St. Anne's Church in Black Lake. But this is it here, probably around first or second year. If you really look close, it is beautiful. And up there towards the center of the main door, they got the old boy laid out. You can have a band playing on the side if you're left. And why they took it to the funeral, I don't know. Maybe they're sending it back in the old country to Sash passed away or something like that. But this was the old church, and that's where they would build a church, a school, and eventually a convent. This was the priest who founded it, Father Peter Kahelik. He came from Poland. As a young man, he was in the cavalry. Served His Imperial Majesty Nicholas II, because they were under the Russian control. He came here, he helped establish the parish of Wanata. There's one in Jasper County. I'm not sure if he had anything to do with, kind of founded, but maybe worked there, St. Albert's. I'm really not sure. I just saw something on that. But he was an old school priest, and he looked out after his parishioners. It's been known what he would do. Certain wives would complain, their husband is out with a saloon. He'd actually go in there and get them. He used to fisticuffs if necessary. But he started that church and got it off on a pretty sound foothold. Later on, he would go to school around the time of World War I. Typical picture of the old school. The nuns that were there were the Franciscans, the Sisters of the Blessed Magunda. And this is around 1914, 15 in there. Notice the children are all sitting there very, very still, quiet. Sister on the right, okay. One on the left, she looks like one who would probably keep law and order. Used the term Sister Mary Brass Knuckles. I've had my 8 years with the sister, actually 9 in kindergarten, sister the same order. But actually, they were good people, and they really take care of their students. The way to get it in our heads was, let's see, old school. This was the convent that they lived in. At one time, we had about 24 nuns living there because they had a few hundred children go into that parish school. Even had one year, I think it was 27. I have a picture that spreads across 2 pages. Had 200 and some kids in the community class. And they had one of those pictures you had to roll out. This, the convent was still standing as of a couple months ago. It had been abandoned for a number of years. This was the rectory. This is the newer church behind it here. They had usually about 3 priests until the 60s. And occasionally they would have a missionary come in or one of the younger ones that did some training there. So at times had 4 or 5 individuals in the parish. St. Hedwig would have early mass at 6:30 to 8 to 10 to 11:30. During the weekdays they would have 3 masses. Even on Saturdays. So they had a pretty good base for many, many years. Gives you a chance to just move about the 50. These are typical immigrants that came to St. Hedwig. Got the period over as my grandfather, like he came from Poland. He first came with his brother-in-law from Minnesota to come out about the jobs in the area. These are the first of his children. My grandmother there, put up here. But they had 8 children. 2 children died. And plus she had to tend for 2 or 3 boarders that they had upstairs. And he was a handful. Let's just say all those years to one of my grandmothers and kids sometimes. But they were married together, I mean, for a very long time. He passed away in an accident that happened in the 1950s. She lived, I think, from 1953, 54, and I still live with my grandmother. The young lad, there's my Uncle Pete, my dad sitting on my dad's lap, that's my Aunt Helen. There were also 3 other boys, 2 other girls. The other 2 children that died. I know one of their names was Joe, that's about it. But that's a typical type immigrant family you find all over here in Calumet. I'll take you over a little bit to the east side neighborhood. Primarily Irish, also a lot of Greeks, Slovaks, and Poles living there. This was St. Luke's parish. And like St. Hedwig, they attracted their folks. I think when you're the priest actually came from Ireland. In the old days, ground floor there was the church, top 2 was the school. Changed it. And much like in St. Hedwig, you see we have a picture of it. By this time you can see they have the sheets coming down there. You know what, you can install it. Maybe the angels. That was the code. So this one was done later on in the 60s. Also on the east side, this was the original Emerson School in Gary. This was the main building in about 1908. And this was a project of Dr. William Ward who came to the city from the very beginning. Ward had the idea of what's called work, study, play. The study, of course, was academics, play, athletics, band, gym classes, and things like that. And the work was shop classes. They would train kids to go learn the skills that the mills can use and make a good life. This is one of the class here, sophomore. 1911. This was 8 years ago. That wasn't that much more. Emerson was not known as by that name for a number of years. It was called Gary High School. This is a picture around 1913 of the athletes. The chief of Gary High School. Actually, Frabel School came about a few years later, and they were actually part of the same system. They were athletes and all. So when Frabel kind of split, the school system split that. But this is one of the early ones too, 1913. This is Frabel School, which was torn down some years ago. It too work study play system. Frabel was geared more for the technical. Their shops were north of the campus. You see the grass part here. They had a bunch of things for science, biology classes, and Beautiful architecture there. Closed, you just let it sit. Toward the old school now. Okay, these were the Emerson shops. This was, Emerson had that main building you saw. They had what we call the Little Building. For a long time, kids called it the Little Building because that's what it was. That was like middle school later on. And at the end, there was by St. Luke's, there was a new building, there was elementary, and they built a nice, what you call a hall in there, and a small auditorium. His name was Emerson School. North of it, on the 600 block, they built the shops. They trained young men, metal, carpentry, number of other things. Also had ROTC, ROTC classes. This was built in 1924. Kids had streetcar to Cradle, but this was eventually built. So you were trying to train young men too, to advance the technology. However, go back a little bit, and even though it was the mill that basically gave people the bread and butter, it was the steel that made the city with that and that, they didn't pay them that much. And I'm looking over here, his name is Ignatz, here, read it. Yeah, sure, I believe it is. First name's Ignatz. He got, in one check, 43, the other one was 35. Now that's for 2 weeks he paid. My grandfather, when he came here, he was making 17 cents an hour. If you, what's the guy's name? It was Brody, the book of Steelworkers in America. They had the different breakdowns in different areas, how much they were getting paid. My grandfather was in that whole group too. Then again, what was the cost of living? Still, men like Ignatz over here, they worked 12-hour shifts, 6 days a week. There was no like Saturday overtime or a 6th day or whatever. He got paid straight wage, whatever it was. They also worked what is a swing shift. Anybody know what that is? Anybody want to tell me?
Well, you
You're not
work
in my
double.
class. Anybody?
You work one shift, well, I only did it when we had 8-hour shifts.
Okay.
But you work 8 to 4 for a week or two, and then 4 to 12, and then you did midnights.
Okay, well, when they swung over, that was that 24-hour thing they had. Coal miners had that. So let's say we start tomorrow, 6 o'clock. We go that way for about 3 weeks, for 6 days a week. Then we got to swing. So we come in at 6, but we don't go home at 6. We stay till midnight, and then of course you're on the night shift, the evening night shift. And that's what they did. And again, fellows like him, this was 1910, didn't have any vacation, no pension benefits, no hospitalization. I mean, if they did anything, they just passed the hat. Or if they were insured by, let's say, a Polish National Alliance, I don't know if that was their name back then, or Slovaks Union or something. That's about all they had. Knights of Columbus. Eventually, though, and there would be problems as far as the laborers. The war, World War I had just ended. Many of these young men came back. They saved the world for democracy. And if you know anything about that period, the following year, 1919, there were a rash of strikes all over the country. In Boston, you had the police strike, which the governor, Calvin Coolidge, had to call out the military. And, because there was looting and people getting assaulted, killed, and that. So you had to call out the National Guard, or back then called the state militia. The coal miners went on strike. Kentucky, West Virginia, those areas. Your longshoremen out on the West Coast went on strike. Those are some guys you can mess with. The steel workers went on strike. And it was the AFL Samuel Gompers. Eventually, with the different unions, they worked it out that they were going to start their strike in the fall of 1919. And I believe the one here in the area, and I moved by in Chicago at that time, inland, was called the Amalgamated Iron Steel Boilermakers Union, something like that. It was a real long name they had. And they went on strike. And unlike other strikes in late 1800s and that, where guys walked out and eventually they would eventually come back begging. These guys had planned on it. They'd saved up some money. They were going to work together as far as food and other things. Company planned too, but they did go on strike. This one here is from the Chicago Tribune. And at first, at least locally in northwest Indiana, the strikers had a lot of sympathy. But of course, the longer they stay out, the longer the company and others, people that were supplied by the steel, would complain. And there's some things that happened the previous 2 years in the world. Anybody know what that was?
Russian Revolution.
Yeah, those Ruskies, what I tell you. There had been His Imperial Majesty, Tsar Nicholas, was thrown out of his job, and eventually the Kerensky government, they lose their jobs. And no way in that, they basically take over the Soviet Union, he and his band of friends. And this unrest after the First War was not only going on in Russia, but a few other places. And certain money powers, if you want to use that term, we're basically tying this to the Soviets, to the Bolsheviks, Cold Strike, the longshoremen, the guys here. And they were basically saying we had this unrest going on. Of course, the longer it goes, the more articles that were made about the strike, the more they fell out. There was dissatisfaction with what was going on. They did hold out for quite a while. And I have some photographs of the 1919 strike. This is one of the one of the editorial cartoons that they put out. Basically saying they're on strike. If you notice in the flag, it says red. Those Reds were controlling us. Now this particular picture here is the guys, the workers out on strike. Now at first, the militia was not called. They were hoping the company's security could handle it. And they were issued by the mayor, I believe it was the governor of Indiana, that no pickets and that outside, no marches. Well, apparently they ignored that. And they also, and he set up picket lines, they're going to make sure that no scabs got in. Poor scabs. Strike breakers. That was one of the nice terms they used. They used other terms too back in those days. And they brought in some African Americans, but they also had like different individuals who were similar ethnic groups that couldn't necessarily get along with each other. Now in Gary, I heard of one where they would, before the strike even happened, to keep any kind of incentive to start a union, they might put Poles and folks from parts of Russia on the same shift. And wouldn't necessarily get along with each other, or Ukrainians. Or, I mean, if you could say, okay, you're going to put Serbs and Croats on the same shift, they might not work together. Because the average Catholics and Protestants, they would do that at times. In this particular case, though, they did bring in strike breakers. At first, guys were allowed to go into the main gate. They got beat up a few times. But it did get a bit violent. The governor called out the militia. And in this particular picture here, you see those strikers. You see, there are also guys that were veterans who marched alongside their brothers. And when the commander of the militia kind of observed this, he says, wait a minute, we're going to have a problem. My guys might walk off too. The governor eventually worked in something where the federal authorities acted, and General Leonard Boyd called in troops. This one gets a little grainy. This is on Broadway in Erie, and this is around 6th Avenue. None of those buildings are standing up. Very, very empty. That is, if you can sort of see up there, there's troops marching down the street. This is by the original main library in West Side of Gary. These are the troops here assembling. You get their assignments. Most likely to guard government property. And they housed in a number of places. with the commanders here. These are some of the senior officers here. The article is staff. And this one here is supposed to be Colonel Mapes and his senior staff. He was under the command of General Leonard Wood. Leonard Wood ordered the troops from Fort Sheridan in Illinois to come in. And they were under strict orders that their weapons, they'd be loaded. Some cases they had bayonets drawn if necessary. They were not going to take any crap from anybody. That was their order. By the way, General Leonard Wood, who did he follow here?
Ran for president.
Yeah. What happened?
He got early announced.
Yeah. Who was the guy that went in and got the job? Warren G. Harder. He wanted everybody to like him. But this is based on his staff. I couldn't tell you the real that is. So. This is what was in the commercial club in Gary, and this is actually on Broadway. It's around 500 block. And some of the soldiers were housed there. Okay, the strike though eventually broke and come back. The mill, the owners were ready. They had stockpiled a lot of steel to sell. So a few other reasons too, but basically you got to succeed. In the end, it collapsed. Many of the men who came back were fired or they were blacklisted. What's blacklisted?
Can't get a job anywhere because the word is out against you.
By the way, if you ever watch Andy and Mayberry, they used the word there, Opie was blacklisted. He didn't sell that salve he's supposed to sell. But some guys that came back, they had to sign what's called a yellow dog contract. You ever hear that term used? You probably did, sir.
I've heard it used, and I studied it in high school so many years ago. That they would not join unions, and they
Yeah, you had to promise everything. And the reason why they said yellow dog is because your coworkers were telling you, yellow dog, you gave in to them.
Yeah.
It goes more to the coal miners back in Pennsylvania that, I don't know if you ever heard of the group called the Mulligan Wires.
Yeah.
Every chance to see a movie, it's great. But after the war, actually, economically, things improved. I just got to laugh about Harding being president. But Warren Harding actually got on Judge Gary, who was the owner of the steel plant then, basically saying, the thing about the 2 shifts, the 12 hours, he said that kind of went out in the Middle Ages. Now, Dr. Trusty in one of his classes pointed this out, he had a little handout he gave us. But basically, Gary said, before your term is over, we're going to make some changes. Well, Harding died.
Mm-hmm.
And Trusty kind of just threw it in. Well, he said, probably maybe Harding's ghost came and told him. What they did by 1924, they got not only the wages that they wanted, they did get, I think, 2 hours knocked off. I think they went to a 10-hour day. A few other things that they did receive. And then on the pay, it was a little more than they had demanded. So it did work in that particular respect. There was a lot of building going on here in the Midwest, Chicago, familiar Hammond, Gary, all types of great buildings were built. Also in the 20s, the thing with high school sports really began to take off. And Emerson School, a lot of people don't know this, but Emerson School was the first school that won 3 state football championships. This is one of the teams since 1924. And of course, these guys looked like they got off the 12 shift in the middle. But they had gone undefeated at particular year. They were losing the team. It's the next year, 25, that they had won. That's 23. Well, actually, 23 is the one. They won, they went undefeated, untied, on the school time. And they were like 60-0 in the sectional. They had been known as the Norsemen, and one of the newspapers downstate would report about how fast they would score each time they got the ball. They picked up the name Golden Tornadoes, which had stuck with them all the way through the school calls. This was their basketball team, 27. They went to the state championship game. And you hear about a guy by the name of Johnny Wooden? He played on that team. That was Lebanon. He was the guy that scored enough that basically took control of the game in the second half, and Emerson lost to them. But still, hey, they got to the state championship. This was Fredo Band. Also in the 20s, well, that's the school building. You'll see a picture of that, but these are some of the classes. This is in the 30s, the community class. By the way, what it says up there, 1917, their parachute, saying had the Panaka Schmidt, they had Liga. That arch was still standing as of a couple months ago. I'm going to bring up a couple things about the strike in 37. I did want to just mention to you, there were a number of schools in the area that were big powerhouses. Now, they didn't have as many schools as we do today. And the conferences were set up differently. They didn't have a playoff system that we do. But Emerson, like in the area, East Chicago schools, we took part of the Northern Indiana conference. And basically the two top teams faced each other. Mishawaka, South Bend, one of the Fort Wayne teams. Usually they were regarded the best. They were bigger schools. And so they had some powerhouses to the suburbs, and that changed things. But in the one second. Oh, yeah, okay, I just remembered. No, we had a wrong one over there. But like in the 20s, things went good. And again, you know that by the 1930s, got into the Great Depression. Now, yeah, the market crashed in that, but later that year, actually, the mill was still planning to build a new furnace. And Wall Street actually went up a bit after that big crash. But it was the other things that fell in. The farm prices collapsing, the whole thing with Smoot-Hawley tariff cake. Well, that was even later. But the way the banks not having enough cash on hand when they needed it, the bank runs one thing, the panic, one thing led to another. And yeah, the economy almost completely collapsed. We got Roosevelt then. Things did improve, but again, 36 went into another recession. It was some of the most trying times in the 1930s. In the mid-30s, Roosevelt would bring in the whole thing of allowing the men to organize, to start their own unions. And it was a 35. Signing the Wagner Act basically said, yes, you have the right to organize, and then you have someone who will back you with the National Labor Relations Board. They would look into any kind of abuses, or it's mostly that these companies aren't allowed to organize. They're going to try to do something about it. A number of steel companies did organize their workers. United Steelworkers of America, they were basically the first one. Now, I'm going to get into the Republic Steel plant. This is one of the pictures, sort of an aerial shot of looking at it here on the east side. Get into the top here. But I don't know if anybody heard the story, this is the way it was told to me. John L. Lewis became the head of CIO, Congress of Industrial Organizations. He met with the head of United States Steel. And they were opponents with that. He was in, I believe, New York at the same time that head honcho of U.S. Steel was there. And his wife basically said, isn't that, yeah, that's it. Why don't you go over and say hello? Went over, very cordial, and over the course of what, next half hour, they had agreed to meet. And it was for mutual gain to both parties. Steel company was going to let them organize. Reason being what was going on in Europe in 37. It looked like the world was going to go to war. Also, in the Pacific, Japan had invaded Manchuria, by this time Korea, China. It's possible we could get tied up in it. Or if not, the both future allies, they're going to need the steel. The steel plant, basically, they wanted to keep the orders going. They were going to allow the guys a contract, a certain amount of pay increase, etc. However, there were other plants that were not going to go by that. We would refer to this strike as what? Little steel strike. One of the guys that would hold out was a gentleman by the name of Tom Berger. You might have heard the name. Part of Chicago. Very, well, he had like dictatorial powers the way he ran Republic Steel, which they LTD. But he was not going to go along with the other steel plants. He was going to fight. And after some agreement was reached, I believe it was the J&L and Alquippa. I don't have any facts about that here. But he basically hired more plant guards. He worked out something with the city where the police would be available. He ordered tear gas, machine guns, and he was going to be ready for an all-out siege. Herder, he ruled with an iron hand, let's put it that way. To make sure union organizing would fail, he encouraged families. Let's say, old man worked there, maybe a couple of his sons. Oh yeah, that's good. Because let's say one of the sons was involved in the union, the others weren't. Because you better straighten your brother out. All of you can lose your jobs. Other things, let's say, it was the 1930s. You got a weekend job a little bit more. Got something with a weekend job, do some things. If you found out about it, you could fire you. He had to devote everything to his plant. Girdler's here, I think this is when he testified, but this would be the man who ran Republic Steel. His opponent would be General Lewis. Son of the Times, before the merge, I don't know what that was, but I know Colonel McClellan. But they would get national attention of other union members, of other brothers in the union. The thing was, the film, which you'll see in a little bit, it was suppressed. Now, in my case, the film that you'll watch, the one part of it, the first time I ever saw it was 1967. You know the reporter, I think he's retired now, Harry Porterfield, he was the one who had one of the ladies who was part of that union. And they showed it. And of course, PBS somehow got hold of that. This was one of the ladies, and I think she is here. She got tied up with a lot of families there. I think there were some children there too. This is another one of the promotion. This is all right here. Okay. But what happened is they would have a congressional investigation. I believe it was Senator McClellan. And when you see Girdler there, very arrogant, real attitude. But what happens is that the guys would actually win in the end. They would get that union recognition. Again, it was very costly. They would go back to work. Their particular situation really improved now as we get towards 1940 and more. This picture here is from one of Polish community. This was a guy, Father Stachowiak. This is during a fundraiser when they wanted to build a new church. This is what they were at, the original church that they had. I don't think you had a church. But they did the same kind of thing. Upstairs is the church, and this one here down like St. Luke's downstairs. And upstairs, the other 2 floors are classrooms. And the old wooden school, these were quite a few years yet. This was the St. Edward Church that they built. Late cornerstone, 1940, in construction, the war started. Father Stachowiak was a wheeler dealer. He was able to get the type of steel he needed for those big arches you see in the church. And you'll see a picture of the inside. How he did it, probably the steel plant didn't need that stuff at that time because they were going to get into flat rolled steel and that. But he was able to swing this. And he even got certain electricians from the mill came here to work, hooking up the electrical. But this was the church, which by the way, just closed last year. When the war came, there were a number of guys from St. Henry that fought out the war. Now, this was my dad and two of his three brothers. It's the fourth brother didn't go, but he was notified because of the job he had. They said he couldn't take it. My dad, at the end here, he was in the Pacific during the war. Now, he was there, he signed in 39, he wanted to sign up going by Germans. But, it's Polish, and one like a bunch of other guys, yeah, let's go over there. Might not be in war yet. They signed up anyway, and he wound up going to Hawaii. And he had about 2 more weeks before he was going to be stateside. He was at a place called Schofield Barracks. And that Sunday morning, he was going to the mess hall. There was this big explosion. He figured that mess hall was probably one of the stoves might have blew up. Well, it wasn't that. They were bombing Pearl Harbor. They were bombing Schofield Barracks, and it was like, oh, expletive. He wound up into a duration. He gave him 3 rounds of ammunition, 45. They killed 2 of the enemy and saved 1 for yourself. You go to breakfast, never got breakfast. Wound up on shore duty. They thought the Japanese were going to invade. Later on, he went to Australia. Then he went to New Zealand. He was in a liberation of the Philippines. After the war, he went back in. He went stationed in Germany. That's how I met my mom. She was a refugee from Poland. My brother Billy was on the first wave in the 29th Infantry. He was at Omaha Beach. He was a medic. Served in there, and he also saw action in the Battle of the Bulge. John was in North Africa, Operation Torch. And in Anzio, he was at Monte Cassino, Liberation of Rome. And he made a career out of the military. He's 20, but he served a year in Vietnam, too, in 1960. His brother Stanley was an anti-aircraft. Battle of the Bulge, turned carbine in, gave an M1, and stopped the German advance. Well, then the infantry is right. And there was brother-in-law Charles. He was also went into was in the South Pacific, and he was telling us, yeah, no, I had good duty. I was going to be at Clark Field in the Philippines. December 8th, dateline. He was a pilot in P-38s. The Japanese destroyed them all. He wound up in the coastal artillery. And the big guns couldn't turn around, and they weren't going to fire into the peninsula, the areas where the Americans still held. He wound up in the infantry, which did a bayonet charge. And then he had survived the Bataan Death March and 3.5 years in the Japanese prison camp. By the way, have you ever saw the movie Unbroken? The second camp that kid was in, my uncle was in, but much later. My uncle was in the Philippines at Camp Odana. Then they moved him by ship, the Orinoco Maru, and sent to Japan for slave labor. And his ship was bombed by the Americans. They didn't know. He survived that and then went to Japan. Where he was lucky is he was near the port. He lived in Australia. And apparently the Japanese fishermen, some of them, were actually, they would give him some fish because one of the guys who spoke some English basically had 2 boys in the military. He says, I don't know where they're at, but if I do something good for you guys, but as long as he lets it, he takes some fish and that's it. He says that they actually helped him to survive. He too served after the war. He was stationed in Germany. He also later worked for McDonald with Douglas Aircraft. He decided planes. These are a couple other guys at the parish. There's Frank Jenselaw. He was in the South Pacific. The other one there is Frank Bentley. Anybody here from Bishop Moulton? Remember Mr. Bentley?
Yeah.
That's his mom and dad. So they got married and both came back. Mr. Bentley gave me some stuff like that. I was looking at everybody else in Bishop Moulton. But yeah, he's a good friend of mine. He had the room next to me for a lot of the years that I was there. This is Dr. Topa and his friend. He was a dentist. And in the Battle of Leyte Gulf, he was on a convoy. An Australian pilot was injured. They had to do some kind of work on his jaw. He created some kind of special drill, whatnot. He got a patent on it. He was a dentist for many, many years in the area. This is Emerson during the war in 1943. Two of those guys wound up in the South Pacific. They were juniors. Yeah, they were juniors. One was John Peck. Oh, no, yeah, sorry. He was a senior in this one. John was in the South Pacific later. Another one wound up at Okinawa. So he told me stories. You know, we go interview with people. Yeah, let me show my, what you call it, take pictures. I saw that. I've seen that one before. 1959. Now, there was a strike in 56, didn't last long. 59, though, this was the big one that some of you might remember, or your dads or something were part of. This is in the Union Hall, 1014, when they voted the strike. They went by locals. This is also outside of the place. I belonged to 1014, and by this time, when I was there, we were at the Bryan Hall. We voted on a strike. We walked out. The strike lasted, correct, I believe it was 119 days. And day in, day out, they're picketing outside the gate at Broadway, Virginia Street. In the area, they picketed the other steel plants in the area. This is just showing their solidarity. This was that, it's called Philip Murray Hall. This was just off Broadway here. This is on Broadway. The strike, behind that you can see the open house there. That's Grant County at Riverdale. Now, eventually, I mean, they're thinking of national security and that. I ordered the guys to come back to use what's called the Taft-Hartley injunction. They would go to work for 80 days, kind of a cooling off period. They eventually did. They eventually worked out their differences. Chavez pushed out. Ravine here. One of the things, even though it was 1959 with the strike, there was something that kept the guys together. One of those was the team on the south side of Chicago. The Sox were going for a pennant that year. For those of you who might remember that, I still remember a little bit of it. The Sox would make it to the World Series. We thought they were going to first game, thought it was sweet. It was 13-1 or something. But when they won the pennant, they were in Cleveland. The mere day they did something that would be terrifying to most people in the 50s.
Yeah, some would be early.
Right, you know, they thought those commies finally went nuts. They were gonna attack us, and scared the hell of a lot of little old ladies too, and little old men, and a lot of other people, a lot of kids too. That's when we used to have the air raid drills and stuff, when we'd hide under the desks. I went to Catholic school, we used to have to say a rosary too. But this is one of the things that I had found about it. They were bombers, all right. I mean, hey, they won the pennant. You got to give them a lot of credit for that particular year. 1959, we also see the new church at St. Luke's. This was the one that was built around 59, and the other building would be strictly the school. Father, it was Conway, he was the head honcho there. The younger priest, Father Bart, he was one of the guys who really got that parish going. In fact, him too, he took on the east side. He knew like everything about it. He was really helped to me. He passed away. This is St. Luke's Christmas time, particular church, and I mean it wasn't in that modern style that we walk into some churches, you just don't feel like it's a church. They do something still the thing of the altar and everything, even when they changed things after the Second Vatican Council, turned the altar around, it still was like a church. It's like St. Henry's, a lot of other churches. Okay, now, since we're just going to kind of wrap it up, and then share some of the famous people from the places. Now, the lady there, I think you know the gentleman. Right? She is Helen Jelinski, very good friend of our family. And she was became head of the Polish Women's Alliance in Chicago for a number of years. When Karol Wojtyła was Cardinal, Archbishop, she knew him. She went to Poland and everything. he was in Chicago as, I don't know, wait here. She was coming with some ladies, I think they got off the L train or the South train in Chicago. She tripped, to the hospital. He found out about it, he went to visit her twice. When he became Pope, she was invited with her, her daughter. And my aunt was a full best friend. He still kept in touch with her. There were a few lunches they had, so they were Polish women's alive. And she was one of those people who bought a lot of relics, blessed this and that. And before he tore down St. Henry, not tore it down, shut it down. I found a icon of the Black Madonna that she purchased in Poland. They were going to trash all that. I stole it. Well, they saved a lot of stuff when they're out. These were the nuns that had taught us, the sisters of Franciscans of the Blessed Virgin. I did visit some of those nuns later on when I was working on my first book. A number of them still alive. And I tell you, stuff up here, they remember everything. And I tell you, I mean, they were so glad when I visited, you know, especially the ones that taught me. One of them, Sister Elaine Markowski, she knew my cousin very well, my cousin Mike. And Mike liked to act stupid in church. And I remember one time he's making noise. The guys are like, and the way the lights were at St. Hedwig's, it looked, it was one of these things like today. You see the shadow of her walking, but it wasn't like a person who walks up and down. It was just like he just floated across. And the next thing I know, he was like here. It was like something came over him. He's a good boy after that. He did very well. I mean, the guy owns his own business. He started a Utah electrical firm. He lives in Nevada. He just bought a houseboat on the Columbia River. But every time I went to visit him, he always asked about how sister was. I eventually got in touch with her by phone. She remembered him and that. And I said, "You really love that lady, even though she knocked the hell out of you." And he goes, "Yeah, but I deserve that one." And that's what I got away with. But there are a few of them. I used to visit her too, especially. Because she was like, they knew everybody, knew your family, knew this and that. And they basically they made a lot of people successful, at least in our community. And they knew how to handle a lot of these families where you had problems, you know, the old man was mean and stuff like that. When they did have these different reunions in our parish, the guys 50, 60 years old would come in if the nuns were still there, they'd come and sing. Because it was just something about them. I joke, sister, very brass knuckles, but really they were okay people. One of the guys from Emerson School graduated in the 1930s. Do you recognize him? Carl Malden, actually, Vladan Zakulovic. Number of movies he was in. Didn't he get Best Supporting Actor in
Streetcar Named Desire?
Is that the one, or was it the? I don't know about the Minions. Yeah, one of
Streetcar Named Desire.
Okay, but he was a heck of an actor. This is when he was making, he had a TV show about steelworkers, lasted about 2.5 seasons. That instead. But yeah, he went to Emerson. He was at Emerson once when I was at the school. He would always come back to Gary. He had worked really in the open hearts as a young man. His name, again, Vladan Zakulovic. How did he pick Carl Malden? When he went outside and he was getting his interview, he said, "You have to think something better." There was like a car dealership. It said Carl Malden. That's how he took the name. In every one of his movies, films, TV shows, he always had the name Zakulovic. Period. We're going to Zakulovic. So, hey, tell Joe Zakulovic this and that. He was in a movie, Pollyanna. I think one of the guys who used to throw the ball at the dunk tank, I think his name was Zakulovic. Alex Kiris, familiar?
Yeah.
All three of these guys played football at Emerson. Ted, Lou, Alex. Alex, of course, he's a pretty good actor. He had a couple of TV show. He also was in a historical series called Centennial, played a German guy, 1800s in Colorado. A few other films, but of course a lot of people remember him in the movie Blazing Saddles as Mongo. Mongo, right? Poor guy, he passed away with dementia and all. his brother, we have our 50th at Emerson this year, but all the other years we have like 1 or 2 things, one in the summer, one right after Thanksgiving between Christmas. Well, hey, if you want to come, we got to get together in Chesterton. We get 30, 40 couples. Depends on the weather in the wintertime. So if you miss one year, you come back the next. His brother used to go to ours because we would invite other people that were not part of our time. And he just passed away too. But his brother was really kind when I was doing stuff on the east side of the table, getting all this stuff for him. 2 gentlemen from Gary. I think you know the one with the nice tie there, Hank Strab, Super Bowl champ. He went to New Wallace School. The guy on the other side there was Tony Zale. Remember St. Hedwig's middleweight champ? Beat who 2 out of 3 times. Middleweight champ. Graziano. Graziano beat him once, and he came back and beat the second or third round. And yeah, he was kind of an impact in the city. He also served in one of our teams. This is the interior of St. Hedwig. As I was pointing out, they closed the parish. And they were just going to take 40,000 for the problem. However, just by chance, we were able to save a lot of stuff. The Razor, he was an Indian gentleman. Wait a minute, you're going to just, how much he got his boss to come in, fought and some other people. They said just those windows, you're going to post $100,000 each. If they're the right kind, it's at least 10,000. The altar, they were able to get all the windows out of the store. The statues, one of the statues, anybody remember it? The center one, St. Hedwig, is an Andrea now. The Salvatorians took the bells. The pews went to a number of parishes around here. The doors were stored in just the hinges on set for $500. And they were just going to toss this whole parish. That was just, I worked there after in my summers and retirement help take care of a couple other guys who were in the parish. And even the way it was closed, and people decided the day it was, it was really bad. The priest who worked in Salvatorians, he was coming back from Poland. Individuals that were close to tribunal ran it. No, we're closing it here. Done very, very badly, but we were able to save quite a bit, and when we did tear the church down, we're talking about selling the bricks, at least for $1. It still makes money. But it was one of those traditional old-time churches. And, like I say, statues, the stations, they can't. That's built into the wall. They were talking about trying to save. They don't. They tried properly. I don't know what happened. That's it? Okay. We're going to turn on that thing about 37. Any questions before we're setting up? Anything? Okay, this is going to be about 14 inches. We'll show you this one about the strike. Did you? No. That's going to be what we're going to show. There's a line in here that older gentleman used because when they say you're too old to work and too young to die. And that always kind of stuck with me. Now, back when this came out, I wouldn't say that. Of course, today it's different. I guess when you get older, you don't care what you say. My cousin, worse than me, calls me up for my birthday. He says, "Hey, you still living?" What the hell you think? But there were that kind of a family. Now, he's kind of at the upper crust of our family. But he built his own thing and everything out of Utah. And he sometimes, he's semi-retired like me. He serves as an advisor. He spent about 6 months down in southern Indiana on some power stuff because that's all he was involved in. So again, it was called Stanton and Holton. It's about the city here in Indiana. There are some books here. If anybody wants to buy one, I'll give you a good deal for it. Also, I thank you all for coming out on this dreary evening. I appreciate having a chance to talk to you. Like I say, if there's something you caught that was wrong, I wouldn't have got, if you said it was this year, not that year, I don't get mad, because that's how I learned too. But I'm grateful all of you to come here and, check this all out. So, wish y'all a good evening at the safe trip home.
I'll remind everybody that our final forum for this series of speakers is May 1st, and it's Lester Marzalek, archaeologist, and a very entertaining speaker, and you'll have to come here to find out. But anyway, thanks to everybody for coming tonight, and we'll see you next month.